Hey guys, Richard here with Downgrid Survival. So I'm out early on a Saturday morning. I got the sun at my back, so if it glares through the back window there, I do apologize. But in this video, I want to talk a little bit about ESG scores and what that is and how it correlates to biblical reference. So stick with me for a moment. So if you're not Christian, that's fine. I'm going to share just a little tidbit of information with you. Don't go running scared. But for those of you who are Christian, you'll probably understand where I'm coming from. So let's start with this biblical reference for a second. And in the book of Revelations, in the Bible, it talks about the beast. Okay, kind of describes the beast that is going to be unleashed, and basically what it comes down to, if you don't worship the beast, then you're going to die. Bad things are going to happen to you. For those who take upon them, or worship the beast, I guess, take upon them the name of the beast and his associated number, which happens to be 666, then, I suppose good things are supposed to happen to you in a sense of evil. But here's what's important about this. In the book of Revelations, there's one small verse that specifically says, if you don't have the mark of the beast, okay, if you don't have the mark of the beast, you will not be allowed to buy and sell anything. Now, this is a biblical reference, and this is something that's been prophesied thousands of years ago. And it's kind of disturbing thinking of the fact that if you don't subject yourself to this evil, then you can't buy or sell anything at all. So from that one small verse right there, we learn how important it is to be self-reliant, how important it is that we become not dependent upon our government and other sources, that we try as much as possible to just survive on our own accord, right? Growing our own food and providing for ourselves. And that's where a lot of folks, they choose to live off grid because they want to be disconnected from the government. They want to be disconnected from utility sources, and they just want to be self-sustaining and try to live a peaceful life. And that's my goal. My goal is to get to that point. Excuse me, I'm working on a cold, I think. Summer cold. So now let's talk about ESG scores and how that relates. So if you've heard about ESG scores, there's a good chance a lot of you have not. Most of the people that I've talked with a little bit in my circle, people are saying that no, they haven't heard about ESG scores. And what is that? So let's define a little bit about what ESG scores are. ESG scores is a plan that was devised just a couple of short years ago. And in fact, it really got going in 2019. And it's a concept that was created by Klaus Schwab, who is the leader of the World Economic Forum. He's the elitist that is really running the charge. It's his plan for the whole Great Reset, yada yada. And what's disturbing about his plan and this whole concept of ESG scores is that thousands and thousands and thousands of companies and governments around the world have already signed up to it and agreed to it. So basically what an ESG score is, you know what a credit score is. Credit score is a score that is assigned to you based on your financial history and your financial standing in the world. It helps banks and creditors look at you and decide if you're a credit risk, or if they can loan you money, if you're searching for a car loan or a bank loan, credit cards, whatever. And it's just a way of measuring your overall worthiness to be issued credit. So an ESG score is similar in nature, but it's based on your social standing. And so what's happening is that every time you go out and you search the internet, every time you go out and like something or share something, everything that you write online, to include things such as where you go to shop physically and people that you associate with, all this type, and they can track that by your phone and know exactly where you've been and where you are and that sort of thing. All of this is being compiled, all this data is being compiled, and they're going to assign a score based on some criteria of whether or not you're a good person, a bad person, a person who is someone who is going against the grain or going against the overall ideology of those who are in charge. So think of it this way. Think of it as a score that gets assigned to you, and let's say, I don't know, you're someone who is kind of pushing back on what's happening right now, then you're going to have a really low ESG score. Well, then you stop and you start thinking a little bit about how they're moving towards a one world government and a one currency system. And it's going to be an electronic currency is what they're wanting to roll out. So then you start looking at how the government is going to control, your banking, your funds, your access to funds, and everything's electronically. And you tie that with your ESG score. So if you're a person that is going against the grain, we'll just call it, bucking the system, and you have a low ESG score, you may not have access to your money. You may not be able to do the shopping and buy the things you want because your electronic currency will be frozen or restricted, and you'll have limitations imposed upon you. That includes food, clothing, anything you might need or want. You may have access to some of these things, but you may be limited in quantity. So let's say you go to the grocery store and you're accustomed to spending $200 a week at the grocery store for your family. And let's say the next time you go to the grocery store, you're only limited to $50. Or you're only limited to buying one fruit item. Or 2 or 3 canned goods instead of 7 or 8. You get the idea how all this can be controlled. So with the rollout, I'm going over a bridge. Sorry about that. I'm getting real bumpy here. It's beautiful though. Water everywhere. So with the rollout of the ESG system and assigning ESG scores to everyone to give them some type of social ranking, and then you consider the biblical reference of the mark of the beast and how people won't be allowed to buy or sell anything unless they have the mark of the beast, you can kind of see where things are headed. And that should give you chills. Now, where are we at with ESG scores? Well, it's already been accepted, like I said, by thousands of companies, and it's already being rolled out. You can go out and research it and look it up yourself, but there's a lot of companies that are starting to roll this out. And I know, luckily, I'm here in the state of Florida, the free state of Florida, and our governor has been working hard pushing back on ESG scores and trying to prevent companies from, going down that path. But I don't know. I have a feeling he's going to eventually lose, but we'll see. But I'm going to put a document down below, a link to a document. It's a PDF document, I believe it was. And it's going to explain to you, it's just a 2 or 3 page write-up, and it explains to you what the ESG score is, how it got started, basically how it's going to work. All the top brand companies that you're familiar with that have already signed on. We're talking Amazon, Walmart, Target, car companies, financial institutions, investment firms, the whole 9 yards. And they've all signed up to this. Now, the document doesn't really draw the conclusion that I did, because it didn't go that far, but it does explain to you how they're using the ESG score, for its righteous purpose of making financial decisions and whether companies are risky or not risky, and Basically, it's a way to kind of control companies, and if companies don't sign on to, and reduce their carbon footprint and try to save the environment and limit disinformation, then they would have a lower score. But companies that do sign on, like all of our social media companies, that decide that they will limit information and censor information, then they get a really high ESG score, and therefore eventually in the end it's going to be more profitable for them. So that's basically what this document explains. But you got to look past that and look at the nefarious ways that they're going to use this and how it could affect you. And that's what I just described to you, where it could get to the point of controlling what you can and cannot buy, which essentially is controlling the food supply. So, all of this, coupled with what it speaks of in the Bible, tells me that it's happening. It's going to happen. And we just got to get ready for it. So, do the best you can. Not everyone, like myself, not everyone can go and live off grid. It's just not feasible for everyone to do that. But we've also talked in a recent video here a month or so ago that unfortunately up to 90% of the people on the earth are gonna die within the first year of the collapse. And when all this goes down and society pretty much just collapses, a lot of people are going to be gone. And so the people that are left will be left to roam the earth and live off the grid. So yeah, just a horrible thought, horrible concept of what we're facing. But hey, that's it for this video. I just wanted to share that with you because just kind of made the correlation here last couple of days, and I wanted to get that out there and see what you thought. And so leave comments down below. Let me know what your thoughts are and what you're doing to kind of prepare for such events. And yeah, if you're new here, make sure you subscribe to my channel. This is the kind of things we talk about. Be sure to like this video, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. My camera's falling. Hey guys, I'm back. So I just reviewed the video I just recorded, and I realized I left out a very important point that should come out. And that is, everything that the World Economic Forum is doing, they're a private entity comprised of companies, and to include governments around the world, but it's ran by an individual and a group of individuals that are unelected, okay? And you have to ask yourself, well, how can this unelected group of people come together, all these rich guys come together and decide they're going to form one government and control the world? Well, it's actually a pretty simple concept. If they've gotten all these private companies, and I just mentioned a few, the Walmarts, the Targets, all the large companies, if they've all agreed and signed on to this plan, they control everything beyond what a government control. It doesn't matter what laws a government puts out there. They become irrelevant at that point because they lose all their power and control. So, think of it this way. If you have a private group of people that control commerce, controls the food supply, controls all the manufacturing and pretty much everything that our society needs as a whole to function and to survive, if you have a private group of individuals that can control all of that and decide, based on a score, who gets the shop, who doesn't get the shop, who gets what, you can see how they can easily take over the world. And it doesn't matter if you're a superpower or what government you're with and what country you live in. That government can become, the current existing government can become powerless because private sectors all come together, and you're up against all these private companies, and there's just no way to enforce anything at that point. So it all kind of falls apart, which is just it's quite an overwhelming thought to think that that's how it could roll out. But that's how it's rolling out because, as I mentioned, thousands of companies have signed on to this. And why? I don't get it. There's There's financial benefits. Obviously, it's all about greed. It's all about money. But in the way it's rolling out, you know, there's incentives for them to do this. But in the end, it's going to be to everyone's detriment. It's just crazy. Just crazy how. And I just, you know, all this just kind of came to my mind when I was reviewing this other video. It all just kind of cleared up for me, and I realize now just how it can happen, and how, you know, private, unelected, you know, thugs, we'll call them, can take over the world. But it's all about, you know, it's all about having the support. And they've got the support from all the key players, from all the industries. Wow. It's a little shocking. I just come to that realization myself. So I hope you understand where I'm getting at here. This is where governments fall. This is where governments fall and societies start to collapse, not just here in the United States, but everywhere. Because the few people at the top are controlling what companies are able to do and not do, and the manufacturing process, and controlling what you and I are able to purchase and not purchase. And yeah, that's how they're doing it. So again, like, comment, subscribe. Tell me down below what you think, and go research it yourself. It's important that you do that. Go research it yourself. Take care.